Before using any machine in the shop, you should read and understand the owner's manuals. This machine is our wide belt sander. This specific brand of machine is a Time Saver, but it is a wide belt sander. This particular unit has a 42-inch sanding capability, so we can fit a 42-inch wide board through the throat of the machine. Let's take a look inside the machine. We'll find the sanding belt in here. This is a 42-inch long belt that goes all the way across here, and it's 60 inches long for the entire loop. And so this is what is known as a wide belt sander because it has that really long or wide belt that fits on here. As with any machine in the shop, we want to review the warning labels that are posted on the machine before operating each day. We want to review those so that we're in the right frame of mind before operating the machine. So we're over here at the control panel. We're ready to turn the machine on, and so we need to get the power turned on before the display will turn on here. And so we're going to do that by turning on the control power, and that's just this little turning knob here. We'll turn that on and it turns green. We're also then going to hit the main start button underneath that, and that should turn green as well. And we can see that some of our other lights start to turn on. And now our display is turned on as well. We have a board here that we're going to measure and see how thick it is so we can set the machine to the correct thickness. Now the way we're going to do that is measure this with a caliper. Typically speaking, there's a caliper mounted right here on the front of the machine for you to use, and make sure that it is zeroed out wherever the zero position may be faced on the caliper. Make sure that it zeroes out before you try to take a reading. Now you can just open that up and put it on your board and take a reading. And if we look at that, it's about 15/16 according to the material when we ordered it. But if I look at this caliper, we're at about 0.94. So 0.94 is where we're going to set the machine in order to get this machine set correctly. When you're done measuring your board, you can put the calipers right back there in their holder. That way they're ready to use the next time you need to use them, and they're not laying on the machine. They're not going to get sucked into the machine or anything like that. We're ready to enter in the size of our material, and so right now we'll see these two numbers are the same. This bottom number is the number that the machine is currently set at. This top number is the machine that was typed in last. So we don't really too concerned about the top number. When we run the machine, the bottom number here is critical that we're at the correct size. So we're going to type in 0.94, and we're going to do that by hitting the program button, this yellow program button. Then I'm going to type my size, 0.94. I don't need the zero afterwards, but I can put it. If I don't put it on, when I hit enter, it's going to add the zero for me. So now that I have my size in there correctly, I typed it in, 0.94. Now I'm going to come down here to the bottom right corner and hit enter. So I'm going to hit enter, and you'll see that it added the zero on for me, and it's put it in. Now the machine hasn't moved, I have just inputted a size. So now you'll notice that this light is blinking on the blue start button. So if I hit the blue start button, this bottom number is going to start to move because the table itself is moving. So let's hit that, and you'll notice that that size is dropping to a bigger number. And if we look at the table, it is also moving. Now you'll notice that this is starting to get bigger. It's actually going to go down past our size. Then the machine is going to bring it back up and try to focus right on that number. Sometimes it'll get there the first time. Sometimes it will have to go back down and come back up until it can get right on that number. So it may go up and down about 2 or 3 times before it locks into the correct size. So now that that bottom number is set where we want it, we're ready to turn the machine on and run our pieces. So let's say you're typing in a size and you meant to hit 0.95 and you got 0.50 in there. So this button here, just above enter, is a clear button. Okay, this will clear out the data. or you could hit stop. You could try either one of those to clear out your size. So you'll see the light is blinking, and I want to hit the clear button, and it goes back to my last entered size. So I would then hit the program again, 0.94, enter. Oh wait, I wanted to be 0.95. So again, I would have to come back in and hit stop and program again, 0.95, enter. That's where I want to be, and now I can hit start. So as we're setting this machine, our first pass is going to be 940. Our next pass is going to be 930. Our pass after that is 920. So this is the 10th spot. This is the 100th spot. This is the 1000th spot. So we're going to go and move our places 10,000ths of an inch each pass, or 1/100th of an inch, however you want to say that. But each time we're moving the middle number one spot each time. Okay, we don't want to take off too much. We don't want to damage the machine or get a bad cut on our board. So we're going to only do 1/100th of an inch per pass, or 10,000ths, however you would like to say that. So if we just ran our piece through the machine and now we want to move the machine up 10,000ths of an inch, all we have to do is come over to the control panel and hit the dot. The dot will set the size up 10,000th of an inch and hit start. We run our board through that size. We want to go 1/10 smaller, or 1/100th of an inch smaller. We're going to hit that dot again and hit start. And each time we hit this dot, it's going to move 1/100th of an inch each time, and then just hit start. And 1/100th of an inch again. And you can see this doesn't matter the size. We have an odd size here. We have a 1 in the 1000th spot, and it will automatically account for that. So if we hit that number, it's going to keep that 1, so we're automatically moving 1/100th of an inch or 10,000ths of an inch each time, and hit start. And you see it keeps that position. There's a little bit of flickering there. It's right on the threshold of being the size below and the size above. That's fine. If you're 1,000th of an inch off on your run or your pass, you'll be okay. Not a big deal. Don't worry about that flickering between one spot or another. That's okay. So now before we turn the machine on, we need to make sure the blast gate is open. There's a sign here attached to a little metal string or a metal chain. Make sure the blast gate on top of the machine is open. That helps with dust management. If that's not open, the inside gets clogged up with sawdust and the electrical inside can have some problems. Like on our planer, our board is going to get fed through the machine. This in-feed roller is going to pull our workpiece in and keep it pushed down, or keep it moving forward. There's rollers inside that keep it pushed down. We want to keep our hands clear of the throat of the machine. We should never bend down and look into the throat of the machine, because if it were to shoot a board out, it would be coming out towards us. You can see here on the warning label that there's a danger of the board shooting out at you. So you would not want to stand directly behind your board that you are feeding in. You would want to stand off to the side. So don't stand down here directly in line. Move your body off to the side so as you feed it in, if it were to shoot back, it would not hit you. We also want to keep your fingers clear from the bottom side of the workpiece. Don't have your fingers underneath here, because the machine is going to just push the workpiece down and could drag your hand into the machine with it. Or just pinch your fingers even if it doesn't drag it in. So let's turn on the machine. There's a couple brakes to keep the machine from moving when it's turned off. So we have to hit the red stop button and this red stop button to turn the brakes off of the machine so the machine can start up. If the lights aren't on, then we can go ahead and hit the head to start up first. We're going to turn that on. It's going to take a lot of energy to draw out and get this to speed. So right above this is a little gauge. And as we turn this on, we're going to watch that gauge. This needle is going to spike up as the motor is revving up. We do not want to use the machine until it's reached full speed. Once the machine is ready to use, this needle will drop back down to our operating speed. We should definitely not be above that 50 mark when we're sanding. So there's 25, 50, 75. That needle, we should not be putting a load on the motor greater than that 50 on there. So if we turn this on, I'm going to just push the button. We can see up here that needle is spiked up. Now we're ready to go. Now we can turn the in-feed roller on, and that starts the belt. Once the belt is at full speed, we can run our piece through. When you're done, turn the machine off. You'll notice that the machine takes a little bit of time to shut off. We're going to let it coast down on its own. Please do not use any of the 5 emergency brakes unless it is a true emergency. What that does is there is a brake that causes the machine to stop quickly. And so if we use that brake, just like the brake on your car, it's going to wear out over time if we use it every day. It'd be like driving down the road and slamming on your brakes at 100 miles an hour. So we don't want to use any of the emergency stops while the machine's running unless it is an emergency. Or also, we don't want to open up the doors to the machine while the machine is running, because that will also trigger the brake. And again, that's going to wear out with time if we continue to use that on a daily basis. Our 5 emergency stops, there's one right here on the control panel. In the front where the operator might be standing, there's one on the left side, and then there's one on the right side over here. So there's 2 emergency stops there on the front side. And then on the back side, we also have 2 emergency stops, one on each side. So if someone's back here catching your material, or you're coming around to grab your material, there's a stop there and one here. All of them operate the same. If they're pushed in, all it takes is a 1/4 turn and it should pop back out in the on position. So if someone were to push that and you were to go to try to start the machine, it's not going to start. So I'm going to, you notice my brakes are off, we're good there. So if I hit start, the machine is not going to start because that emergency stop is engaged. So make sure all the emergency, if it won't start, make sure all the emergency stops are popped out, and then we should be good to go. There's also a speed control for the belt. That's right here. This feed speed is how fast this belt is moving down here. Generally, we're going to leave that at about the 3 position that's on here. There's a number 3 scribed on there. Unless we're doing something really wide, maybe we're doing a 36-inch wide board, then we would turn that down lower. But we really don't want to increase the speed. What happens is we're not giving the machine enough time to sand, and it's not going to cut very nice or clean for us. So we want to make sure that we don't turn the speed up beyond that 3 or 4 range. Really, you shouldn't need to mess with that at all unless your board's getting stuck. And you can come talk to me while you're running, or after you're done running your pass, and we'll get this figured out for you. So when I'm feeding my board in, I'm gonna put it through, the machine's gonna grab it, and I'm gonna use my hand and put some pressure on there until we get about between these two rollers. I don't want my fingers to get too close to this moving surface, but we don't want to just put it up here and let go. We want to make sure that as it's feeding in, it's got some pressure behind there so it doesn't just sit and slip in there. So we're going to put our hand on the back of the material or push through with the back of your hand here till it gets up to the front surface. Once it sucks in and there's only a little bit of board left, maybe your board's to the belt, then we need to go around to the other side and catch the board as it's coming out of the machine. If you're not back here to catch it, it's going to drop and hit the floor, which we don't want to have happen on our good materials. Our minimum length to be run through the machine is, like many of our other machines, 12 inches. If the board is shorter than 12 inches, it's not going to catch the two feed rollers and feed through the workpiece very nice. It could get stuck between the head or in the head of the machine. Now this particular board here, if we take a look, has gotten stuck. You can see these lines that are in the board. That's where it went through the wide belt sander and got stuck, and it stopped moving forward. One thing we can do to help with that is on things that are 12 to 20 inches, if you need, we can always use a push stick behind there. Now there is a push stick that is mounted on the side of the machine here, and you can take that push stick and use that even on long boards at the very end of your board. If you have somebody back there catching, you could use this to put pressure on the back side of your board as it feeds through. You just want to be careful that you don't use it too soon or get it stuck underneath your workpiece, because that's going to lift it up and cause it to sand more. So when you get on the back of your board, what I like to do is stand it up like this so that I have more surface area there to catch the workpiece. If I try to get on it like this, flat, I might get underneath it and cause my workpiece to raise up. So I'm gonna stand it up right like this and do my pushing until I get up into this belt area, and then before it goes under the machine, I'm gonna lay it down flat and use that to help guide or push the workpiece through. Again, we're standing off to the side of the push stick. We're not standing in line with it, so if it were to shoot back, it's not going to hit me. And then as your workpiece is coming out of the back of the machine and this belt is moving, we don't want to be rushed. We don't want to stick our hands ever underneath the back side of the machine. We can see there are some warning labels here that your hands could get pinched with inside the machine if you put them underneath there. So as your board is coming out, all you're going to do is catch it out here. So this board is going to be moving on the conveyor belt, and I'm out here to make sure it's not hitting the floor and supporting it. I'm not pulling, I'm just supporting the workpiece. If you're dealing with a board that you just glued up, a couple of things we need to take care of. One is the excess glue along the glue joint. We need to scrape that off with our scraper, because this is going to melt and heat up, and it's going to transfer to our sand belt, our sandpaper. So we need to scrape this off with our scraper on both sides to get this excess glue off. So we're just going to take our scraper, scrape the joint, and get all that excess glue off that we can. There's a little bit on the inside corner there. We want to get everything off that we can ahead of time so it doesn't damage our machine. Still got a little buildup in here. We need to get off a little bit more. Once the majority of that bead of glue is gone, we should be good to sand our workpiece. Now, when we have a little bit of glue on our workpiece, the first pass that we want to put through when we line it up at the table here, we're going to put it through at a slight angle. Okay, what this does is allow that glue spot to not be in one part of the belt as it's rotating. So as I put this in and sand, that sandpaper is going to be hitting a different spot the entire time and not right over that glue spot. If I were to put it in like this, the sandpaper would hit that glue spot in the entire same spot, and it's going to create a bad spot on the belt. So the first time, make sure you tilt your board just slightly as you're putting it through, and it's going to scratch across the grain at that time, but we'll send it through more passes once that glue's gone, and we'll straighten it up with the grain as we get going. When we're dealing with a board that we have glued together to make a wider panel, we might have a situation like this where the joint is offset because of our gluing. We didn't get that nice and flush. And so what we need to do is measure with the caliper there to get the widest point of our board. We don't want to just measure out here, because as it goes through the machine, it's going to be taking off a lot over here. So we're going to use our caliper at this point and measure that offset so we can get the biggest point of our board, so we can get the machine set right. So rather than setting this board at 0.94, we would need to set this board at about 1.15. 1.15 for this board because of that offset glue joint. When we're sanding boards that have been glued together, we have this joint here, and we want this joint that has some glue on it still. We scraped it the best we could, but we want the glue to not hit the sander in the same point all the time. So on our first couple passes, when this joint is still prevalent and offset, we can take our board and feed it through at a slight angle. This allows the sander to hit the board at different points and not allow that glue to build up in the same spot. If I were to feed the board through like this, the sander would hit it in the same spot along this whole glue joint, and we're going to end up with a line on the sand belt from that glue. So to help preserve our machine and the sandpaper, the first couple passes we're going to put it in at a slight angle and feed our board through so that it doesn't hit the sander head at the same point. Now when we sand like this, we are going to create what's called cross grain, and that's going to be scratches across the grain. Anytime the wood is going in at against the angle of the grain, we're going to create what's called cross grain, and we'll show you what that looks like. So using a light here, we're going to look at our board, and the light is going to allow us to see some of the defects a little bit more. So if we zoom in here and take a look, you can start to see this cross grain. There are small scratches against the grain, and that's where we ran the board through at a slight angle. Anytime the board is getting sanded against the grain, we're going to have that cross grain show up. So we need to sand with the grain now. Typically what we would do is take this to the orbital sander and clean this all up. And then final stage before finish would be hand sanding, and we would hand sand the whole project with the grain to help get rid of that cross grain. And you can see it's in this whole board the whole length because we ran it against the grain. So that cross grain is important to get out of the workpiece. As we are setting the machine to the size that we want for our board, okay, what we can do, there's a couple different ways to input our size. One is with the keypad, which we've shown you already. The other is over here with the open and close button. The open and close button is going to allow you to turn that very quickly, and the machine is going to jog up or down as you move. So you could manually, if you're worried about putting in numbers in the keypad, and if you have it right, you could use that open and close and watch the actual size of the machine, and it's going to actually get right to where we want. So we want it to be at 0.94. I'm going to use that open and close until we get right in. We should be able to get pretty close with that, but maybe not right on like you could typing it in. Okay, so that's another way to adjust the machine with the open and close. The third way to change the size of the board is to watch the number here, and over on the left side of the machine you can use this handle to raise or lower the table, and as you're spinning that, the number up top is going to be changing because we're moving the actual size of the table when we use that handle. So the three ways to change the size of the table or the opening is with the numeric keypad, with the open and close switch, or manually by hand with the wheel on the left side of the machine. So let's talk about when you're done operating the machine, you've run your boards through, now you're ready to shut the machine off. So over here at the control panel, when this machine is on, these two lights are going to be green, and when you are ready to be done, you're going to just turn off the head and stop the feed roller. So both of these buttons will need to be pushed to turn the machine off. Let's take a look. So just because you turn off the head, that's the sanding head, the feed rollers are still going to be driving the workpiece in. So we have to turn off both of these off switches when you're turning the machine off. Again, don't use the emergency brakes. It applies a brake to the motor, which over time is going to wear out. When we're using the wide belt sander, if one of our boards gets stuck in the machine, one thing we never want to do is lower the table while the machine is running. You would want to shut the machine down, let it come to a complete stop before lowering the table to get your board out. If it sounds like there's something truly wrong and you got a board stuck in there, then feel free to use the emergency stops for emergency situations. Now, if your board's stuck in there and you just can't find it, it's lost, don't drop the table until the machine has come to a complete stop, because we have a chance then of our board coming out of the machine and hitting us or somebody else in the shop. If you have any questions on how to use or operate this machine, please talk to your instructor so we can get those questions answered. We want you to not only feel comfortable running it, but know how to run it safely and correctly.